You're here for Season 7 of the Whole Horse Podcast, now at 110 episodes and counting. I'm your host, Alexa Linton, coming to you from Vancouver Island in Canada. I can't wait to continue to share thought-provoking, edge-pushing, geeky, and often challenging conversations with horse professionals from all areas of our industry who are working to make horses' lives better. This season, you can look forward to more on the specifics of creating enriching, healthy horse spaces, an area I'm particularly passionate about. I'm so excited that you're here listening in, meeting great horsey humans, and hopefully learning a new thing or two about horses and yourself. Let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. You're here for the Whole Horse Podcast, and we're coming to the completion of Season 7. I love this job because I get to talk to these humans that I've just wanted to talk to, and now I have an excuse, essentially, to do so. And our guest today is absolutely no exception to this. I actually met her, saw her last. We were chatting about it before the podcast in 2009. So it's been a minute. And I remember this moment, which I'm going to share a little bit later on in the podcast, where I was really, really blown away by her presence. And so I can't wait to introduce you today to Kim McElroy. Thank you for being here, Kim.
Oh, it's my deep pleasure. Thank you so much.
So I want to first congratulate you on, by the time this podcast is out, you will have released your second collaborative deck of cards. And this one is called the Council of Horses Oracle. And I have it right in front of me, and it's so beautiful. So congratulations.
Thank you. It's such a milestone and such a feels like it's been eons in the making. In a good way, but definitely a challenging way as well. It's just been so much, so full.
Mm. So many of us, if you're listening, may have happened upon the Way of the Horse deck that you, Kim, collaborated with Linda Kohanov on creating. And I think that's a staple for many of us.
Right.
I know it is for me.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to have it. It's like anyone I meet in the horse world, pretty much in our horse world,
Yeah.
our special niche is already aware of that work. So it's just amazing segue into what I'm doing now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had the chance to meet you actually through Sandra Wallin, because I was in Sandra's Art of Equus apprenticeship program in 2006.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was how I actually connected to your work and to actually being able to meet you in person. So it's kind of the worlds are kind of all colliding in this moment. This particular deck and what it means. So would you be able to share with us just a little bit of that process that you and Sandra went through to maybe decide on doing this project together, and then what it has looked like?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting you mentioned 2006 because that was around the time where sort of the genesis of it emerged. We were doing some workshops together
Mhm.
at her Chiron's Way Center in Canada, and I was doing some meditation on, what is the work that we're to do together, and what can I learn from the horses? And I had an image and a very strong guide that is in the deck. Actually, Akashkua is his name, and he led me to a place where another horse then took up the journey, and all I got was this glimpse of this gathering of horses, this energy. And the one particular horse is also in the deck, is named Red Bear. And I don't usually get names in my intuitive journeys. So it was, like it stood out. And I just told her, wow, this is something for us. And I can't even say how it evolved, but it just was evident to us that there was something more that could unfold from that. And then we began thinking about, well, maybe we could create a deck. But that was just the baby steps in the very beginning when we even, kind of thought of it. And then it wasn't until really we did work together over the years here and there, but it didn't sort of manifest until around 2015. It sort of woke up in us again, and then it became like, let's do this, and it started as a project, and it's been such an amazing journey of allowing the wisdom to come through us rather than thinking we knew what we, because anytime we had a vision of this is how I want it, because we were so, the bar was set pretty high with the way of the horse with Linda Kohanov, and not only her amazing way of writing, but the size of the deck, the beauty of it, and the impact of that beautiful large kind of kit.
Yeah.
And we've learned through time that decks are really evolving, like almost exponentially, as they became more societally intriguing to people, and there's so many on the market, right? They've also, in some ways, we feel like have gotten diluted, like the early decks that were medicine, animal decks. I can't remember the name of
The
it.
medicine
Right,
cards.
medicine cards were
Yeah.
like one of the very first in the 90s, were so profound and simple, but deep. And we felt like a lot of the shorter ones have gotten a little bit more pedestrian, and we really wanted to keep it very sacred and very condensed. And we would have loved to have written longer essays, but when we did, it became apparent that um, that was not what the market was looking for. But on the other hand, it's kind of interesting that it just condensed down, to the essence of everything. And now we're pretty much really happy that it's shorter, because it's a smaller deck that you can carry with you, that you get right to the point of the reading. And so yeah, it was really amazing. And in the process, uh, we also shifted to what we call the first horse, the first person of the horse speaking to the reader. And that was an interesting direction, because we really wanted to convey the sacredness of these beings as sentient collaborators in our lives, whether they're a spirit form or a horse, that shares our lives, or a horse we drive by on the road to somewhere, and their voice. And so that was very unique. And then of course setting about finding a publisher, finding an agent, all those amazing steps. So it's taken many years to come together.
Mm, and I was blessed to have you send me a copy, and to be have been playing with these for the last chunk of days, because I really love oracle cards. I don't use them as much now as I once did, but I do find them really supportive, especially when I'm at a crossroads, or something's like sort of brewing up in me. It's like, okay, like they just allow me to have this moment of settling, and a moment of like real intention setting, and just, okay, what is it that I'm wanting support around? So yeah, I've really loved perusing and enjoying these, and I thought it was very interesting when I picked a card before our time together. It was Pegasus, which is flowing with inspiration. And so I thought, what a fitting thing. And it's such an absolutely stunning painting, Kim. Like just such beautiful art. Like you can really feel the movement, and the light, and the, I don't know. I just like, I get like drawn into the scene here, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's different too, because I really, that each painting I wanted to bring something new to the traditional myths, especially. And most people on the podcast, if they hear the word Pegasus, they're probably picturing a horse, in flight with these beautiful wings. This is actually a horse on the ground. And Pegasus, I should say, he's a mythical being which has such an amazing history. And he was known as the muse, because he lived with the muses, but he also came from actually the Gorgon Medusa was his mother. And so he has this amazing well of information within him, and he on Mount Helicon, I think it is, he struck the earth and it erupted this spring, and it's called the Hippocrene. And so in this painting, he's actually, Hippocrene means horse spring, and it was the fountain of inspiration for the muses, and poets and artists would come and drink from the fountain in order to receive their inspirations. And in this painting, he's actually like almost after the strike. You can see the water erupting up
Yep.
out of the earth, and his wings are unfurled, but he's not in flight. He's in a beautiful glade with the light hitting all this beautiful water that's the source of inspiration.
Mm. Wow. It's so neat. Can we do every card where you just
Absolutely.
like, ooh, I'm seeing it more. You know, it's
Yeah,
funny
yeah,
actually. Sometimes when I have students, I'll be like, hey, do you like take a card and I just want you to look at it and feel it first.
right.
And then you can read the
Yes.
explanation. You know what I mean? Later, just see what it brings for you first and then
Yeah.
go from there, right?
We
Um,
actually direct in the introduction to the cards, how to use the cards. We talk about, introduce yourself to the horse,
mm,
let them greet you as any horse would, and just like with any horse, and people who might be reading it may not be horse people, so that may be obviously new information to them.
yeah.
And let the horse show you, what is it in the painting that is dawning on you. And then after you've done the reading, look again and see what is now and something might have changed. It's not only that you might notice something different, but we truly believe that the art is a portal, and so something shifts, even the expression of the horse or something will change. It's quite profound. So the art is a living being.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I actually had some that takes us to some of the questions that I had because in your bio, Kim, you talk, and I know this from seeing your paintings and the way of the horse deck, and then sort of moving through these ones slowly, is that your art really has this way of moving that it's not still, that it's not there's this sense of an expression or a I think what you called it like an energetic imprint in what or emotional energy to what you're working with. Can you
Hmm.
share a little bit about that? Like how do you see that? How do you do that?
Yeah, good question, because I'm not always aware of how I do it myself, but I know that everything starts with intent. And I I've told in different podcasts the story of how I even became, focused on horses in my art. Of course, I loved them and just were drawn to them from the time I could hold a crayon, and that's another story. But the moment that happened, that was kind of the genesis of everything, was being with horses who were at liberty in motion, and that translated into my sketches. And that moment somehow created the intention to take that energy and infuse it into the paper. And from there I learned pastel, which became my medium of choice, which is a dry medium, that's pigment that's held together just barely enough to draw with. It's like powdered pigment, that's held together in a something you can hold in your hand, because they say it's not chalk, so I try to avoid the word chalk. Um, but that pigmented essence to me is also like, the minerals of the earth just in pure form. And so um, I really intend that the anything that I'm creating has a life, and I think that comes from early on, my spiritual beliefs of how everything was a living thing, whether it was my stuffed animals or, the little lights of the phosphorus I saw in the water, when I started being in nature, and or the trees or the sky, everything had um a beingness. And I knew that, like when I could start forming thoughts about that. So and then when I learned shamanic journeying, then that really just fit right in with my mindset and my beliefs, because then what I began experiencing in my inner world had that same feeling, like how I experience visionary experiences in my mind's eye and my soul, is that I f- I sort of experience them kinesthetically, like I feel a line rather than I see a line, and the picture comes after. So there's something about all that informed how I did my art, and then the more I've perfected the skill of actually drawing what was in my mind and my kinesthetic sense about things, the more I define how to put that feeling, that specific feeling onto paper, it allowed me to express it. And then the most miraculous thing is that people understood it. Like it was almost like a language that people would see, and then it like wake them up and go, "Oh." And even I will look at things and go, "Well, why is this different than that? Why does this have a life and that doesn't?" If I'm comparing my art with other imagery, or even in my own art, pieces that are not quite there yet, if I sense that there's something missing or that kind of thing. But mostly that it's a miracle that people receive what I try to convey, and that's because the spirit is speaking through it. I don't I'm humble about that art form, because it's definitely coming through me, and I believe that horses are the language that came through me. And it definitely, even from the very beginning, a lot of people that I was first introduced to in the horse world, because I had not been in the horse world all my life until I was like 30, um, were like, "How can you paint horses like this if you've never been around them?" And it's like, "Well, I am one." you know? It just never occurred to me that I couldn't embody or convey what was so close to my soul, such a part of what I was born to do. And in fact, some of the therapeutic work that I did with horses over the years, and when I discovered Linda Kohanov's work and I began doing healing workshops, it's always funny because I discovered early on, when I first learned of Linda's work, and she contacted me first about my mare Dharma, and told her story in the Tao of Equus, and then we later collaborated. Actually, met through Sandra Wallin, and my friend Connie Funk, who signed me up
Oh.
for. Um, yeah, it's really amazing that Connie signed me up for a workshop that Sandra was hosting of Linda at her place,
hmm
and I was like fifth on the waiting list. I didn't even know I was signed up for it, and then suddenly, they called me and said, "You got a space in this workshop," and I'm like, What?" you know. So it was all meant to be. And uh, when I began standing in front of horses and beginning to receive these amazing insights, at the time I was like, "Oh, this is just, for my work." But it was also like, "No, this is for you. Like you have your own healing that needs to happen for you to be able to be in the position to carry this into the world." And I really got to see and feel firsthand that amazing gift of the horse wisdom, and what I was actually painting all along, but didn't actually take in as my own healing, or didn't know it was, some of it was for me. So all that journey was concurrently happening with the art, as well.
Mm, mm. Oh my goodness. There's so many, like just hearing the name Connie Funk just brings me like so much happiness. Maybe
Absolutely.
she's listening. I don't know.
She will be for sure.
Because I have so much love for her. And
Yeah.
I
She
think,
actually was the one that reminded me to, to get in touch with you,
yeah,
and then I
yeah,
looked on our contact and I was like, "Oh, yeah, we talked like what, 2, 3 years ago about doing something." So,
absolutely. And
mhm,
I think that the first time I met you was actually at her place.
I'm sure. Yeah. And
Yeah. And
actually, so who we're talking about is a dear friend of mine, Connie, and she's such a horse wise woman. And in the Council of Horses Oracle card, and the cover that was created from it, if you look on the lower right corner,
yep.
that that is Connie's mare Shasta, who's
Oh,
now a spirit horse in the
yes.
angelic realms, and she joins my herd in that painting. So
Mm.
it was an honor to portray her. She's one of the, well, there isn't, a hierarchy in the horse soul kingdom, but it's definitely, she's an exalted being among exalted beings.
Is she ever? Yes, I've had many a chance to spend time with her, and our mares have met. And
Beautiful.
yeah, and
As have mine,
yes,
interestingly. Yeah.
yes, definitely. I feel Diva always shared this with me. She said, "My herd is infinite. My
Uh,
herd is way larger than you'll ever know." Huh. Wow. Okay. Just like a really, I was in such a human tunnel vision about this that your herd was like the horses in proximity with you, but
right,
no, it was like she kept those horses in her heart that her mother, those in her younger years, those we would move to different barns. Every one of those horses, felt like she kept them as her herd,
right,
and
right,
I was always so, I mean, moved, yes, but also like, wow, do we as humans ever kind of get ourselves boxed in a little bit around the sense of ownership? That doesn't apply when it
exactly.
comes to all of this. Like they make their own rules, and
Yeah,
they're figuring that out. And I felt with Shasta, yeah, like seeing her there, just the way that her presence was felt was quite profound. So I wanted to speak to this because going back to that event, I believe at Connie's, I remember watching you, Kim, and at the time I was a fairly working on grounding, working on presence, but still pretty all over the place human being. And I was fairly young. I would have been maybe 27 ish at that time, 27, 28. And I remember watching you, and I think you were maybe working even with someone else's horse at this clinic. And I was really like to this day had this like feeling of wow, this woman has such a strong and deep presence, such a grounded presence. What would that be like? And I remember that. Like I remember even now being like, wow, and that this horse that I don't believe was yours was so receptive, was so open to this, like, oh, thank you to this presence that you brought. And it was just watching from the sidelines as an observer and witnessing this shifted something in me. I think shifted like, okay, maybe I can be that
what
one
that looks
day.
like. Yeah, what
I
that
can
feels
be
like.
something like that because I'm resourcing now someone who is embodying this way of being. Um, so yeah. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for that.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for that, because
Yeah.
it's not until someone reflects something back at us that we can um, embody it ourselves in some ways. And I would have said, if you had told me that probably in the moment, I would have been shocked, as I am now, even especially in the light of the idea of me being with a horse I didn't know. And I think I know the event you're talking about, but I don't remember the experience deeply as to that moment. Um, but I think we all feel like newbies on the planet, no matter where we are or how we are. And for someone to witness me in that way is very healing, actually, because
Mm,
I never really felt like I got it with the horses in person on the ground with my feet, on the ground and my groundedness. So I guess I must have um, come together for that moment, which has a vague memory in me now that you
yeah.
mention it. And certainly that's what the horses taught me too. It was not something that came naturally to me. And I think the reason I feel the sense of um, surprise at it is that it was always about um, like you said, how we put things in boxes, like uh, horsemanship seemed like this, difficult, um, challenging, how do I do this kind of thing?
Mm,
And yet what happens through the experiences is that the horses give us the opportunities to learn, what they're actually teaching, not necessarily what the clinician is teaching or what what we're being called upon to do. So that's a welcome reflection. Thank you for that memory.
yes, yes, you are welcome. And for me, I think I've wondered since then, and I guess I got a bit of an answer there, but just for you, is that a way that you feel that you're, maybe then it was like coming and going, which I totally relate to because, oh man, especially for example, I'm taking an art class right now with
Yay.
Diane Williams,
Uh-huh.
and we just did our first week. We did a 2.5 hour module this Saturday, and to tell you that I was like drinking from a fire hose was an understatement. I was like, I got off that call, Kim, and I was like, what just happened? Like, what is going, like it was so much information, and I felt like out of my depth, like I don't know this world. Like this is really also new to me. And it was just this reminder of like this beginner mind and how courageous it is for us to put ourselves in a situation where we might look silly, we might not get it right, all these things, right? We're learning as we go. And so I can relate to that sense of like when we feel like, oh wow, this is a like a new thing, and I'm bringing my presence to this space and hoping that it translates well, which I will say for in your case it absolutely did. And I'm hoping with this painting stuff the same is true. you
Yeah,
know yeah,
I
yeah.
totally can understand that. It's so interesting because as you were talking, I was like, wow. So you said, that it was a fire hose. And I just went right back to the card you picked, which is about this wellspring of inspiration that is coming through you. And oh my gosh, it's like it must feel like not only are you taking in this information of, what's being imparted by an artist and actually how to do this, but what's opening up inside you that wants to come out is like you're like, how can I contain this spring that's erupting inside me? And like in the card reading, if I
Yeah,
could just
please.
bring up something in that insight would be it talks about uh
Oh, this is an interesting one. Be mindful of the criticism of
I was just
others,
gonna, yeah, go ahead.
lest it staunches your flow before you gain momentum.
Right.
Wow, equally damaging as self-criticism.
Yeah, and it says he's speaking in the first person, as I said. When I lived with the muses on Mount Helicon, I sensed an untapped resource beneath the stones. Born of water, I knew where it lay. I struck my hoof into what appeared to be dry, rocky ground, and a sacred spring erupted. it came to be known as the Hippocrene, the fountain of the horse. Ever after, drinking its water was regarded by poets and artists as a source of inspiration. Yet I am here to tell you that you are the true source.
Mm, goosebumps, goosebumps.
Me too. Woo!
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks, Pegasus. How beautiful. I just love that. So, yeah, I think my question, Kim, here lies in, and maybe it all comes around to the same piece, is this presence that I observed at that time, and you maybe felt or didn't feel. How, is that still arising in you, growing in you, building in you? And what is, do you kind of think about how you cultivate that, or is that just something that happens, as you go along?
What a fascinating question. Yes, I definitely know that I think you know, I've heard of life as referred to as a spiral, that we come back to the same place on our journey, where we take note and go, here I am again, and here I am again, and here I am again. And all of this, even this project, and most especially this project, has brought that kind of awareness to me of who am I in myself, and who I am to others, and who I am in relationship, and how do I explore that. And just the writing of the deck was, you know in co-creation of doing that, was such a journey of self-discovery. And there was hardly ever a time where, um, as is always the case, I think, in any creativity, which is what you're discovering as well, and I'm sure you already knew, is that, everything we're trying to impart is what we're also learning ourselves. And so there was no separation between what I was writing or painting and what was happening in my life, or what was I was trying to share with excuse me, with others. And what the horse was teaching me, that I could then put words to, whether it was from my own horses in my life, uh or the horse, ancestors, horse spirits, and horse council that guided us. And um it was really incredible to share, to be sort of the translator of that voice. Uh and how, even when, though my horses are included in the deck, and as are Sandra's, um it was also like, h other horse beings began looking like my horses. And
Mm,
I'm sure that will happen for other people who use the deck. It's like there's just these mirages that kind of shine through, where we get to glimpse the infinite, and a spirit that we know, and that makes the story even more personal. But yeah, I definitely feel like, this is a milestone for me, um, as to, having co-created this and have my own writing in it, as well as my
mm,
art. And vice versa. Sandra has her writing and some of her works of art. So it's been an amazing journey, and it's just beginning. I mean, it's really so exciting to have found a publisher that really believed in us. And Inner Traditions Bear Company has just been incredible. And knowing that, such a you know that we really set our intention to find the perfect publisher that was really going to support us and understand the spiritual side of this, and that it wasn't just a commodity, or um, you know, a curiosity. It was, and that it's a call from the horse, you know, spirits to wake up. And that there's more people in the world that respond to that particular energy than anyone realizes. And that was the biggest challenge, was trying to convince the commercial world of that, you know.
Mm.
But thankfully inner traditions bear and company understood it and resonated with it. So I can't wait to see how this unfolds with now that it's getting in the hands of the people it was meant for. And I know that that will just exponentially expand my growth because so much of my growth comes through the horse, whether it's, now my horses have all passed. In fact, there was that was part of the crucible that we were creating in, was that we were both going through some of our hardest challenges with our
Mhm.
horse's health and passing. So um, now I'm in this place of receptivity where the horses that I paint become my teachers, as they always have been, but now it's even more. Um, I think the horses that are coming my way in that sense are showing up, and I'm really looking at their lessons for me personally, as well as, because there's kind of this dance between, for instance, commission work that I do of people's horses for their portraits, and many of them have crossed over. So I'm engaging with the spirit horses of these people who come to me to ask me to paint them, and that I get to receive the wisdom from those horses as well as share that wisdom back with the person. And so there's this beautiful reciprocal energy, and that the horse gets to share that with both of us, and that their purpose as a spirit is still, perpetuated and reflected. It's just amazing. And I've always done that, but it definitely has a new momentum and a new purpose, I think, for and one of the things that we uh love about our deck is that it's not just created for human insight, but it really is intended for the horse to also reconnect and remind them, not that they really ever forget, but but in reading, about their connection, like you said, your horse said, my herd is bigger than you can imagine. And as you said that, then I translated it through my horse ears to hear and to see in my horse eyes the great spirit herd, the council of horses that they're connected to. And so um I think that all of us can get disconnected, whether we're the sacred being of the horse or the sacred being of the human. And that for us to remind them that they are connected with this great herd, and also see them through those eyes so that they get to experience our awareness of that, then we are just, opening up to their wisdom to access more of that. And
Mm.
it's just this beautiful, infinity loop that goes between us.
Mm. Yes, more of that, more of that. Yeah, I think that's one of my, well, many teachers from teachings from my Mare Diva, and continuing. I'm so grateful she's still with me, us at 25, and
Hmm.
hopefully praying for a while longer together. But that has been one of the teachings, is, that sense of look beyond just this, look beyond what you see just tangible in front of you. There's much more here, there's much more happening. Um and yeah, it's been, as someone that wasn't raised, in any kind of spirituality practice, religion, anything like that, and it's very black and white. It's like science is the thing. um and yet this my heart yearned,
Hmm.
obviously, to engage in these ways, right? And I somehow found my way to Dave Collins, who is, I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was a kind of a wizard in a cowboy hat. He'll hate that I say that. He is that. But just such a magical human, and showed me, started to open these passageways and these understandings of, like, oh, there's way more happening than I could ever conceive, ever understand. And I remember back to Sandra's program, and those first 2 years in equine therapy school with Dave started to break me open. And then going into Sandra's program, I don't know how she did it with me because I was just falling apart. I'd kept myself so,
To such a high standard,
oh
or
yeah,
yeah.
and such an overachiever and so bound by my expectations of myself and how I showed up in the world. And so my perfectionist tendencies were, let me tell you, off the charts. And I remember, oh my gosh, poor Sandra. She took us through this exercise, and you may have done this. Maybe you showed her this, where you paint, you just choose like 4 or 5 colors, and then you just throw paint on a canvas. No plan, nothing, just paint on a canvas, and that's it. And I was beside myself. This level of unrestrained doing something that had no instructions other than it was, I the whole time I was doing it, I think I was crying and just beside myself. I just couldn't deal.
Wow.
And it was so profound because I was like, I need to burn this. I need to burn it immediately. Like I was like, where's the fire? Where's the we need to get this out of here. Sandra says, hold up a sec. Just take a breath. Just hold up. She goes, flip that painting around. I'm like, okay. So I flip it upside down. So I'd painted it one way. I turned it 180. Looked at it again. She's like, what do you see? And I look at this painting, and I kid you not, Kim, no hint of a lie, there is the perfect horse. There is the perfect horse in this painting. Like I was like, ah!
Wow.
Like what is happening? And
You
not
just
only
whinnied.
uh, not only that, there was like I had been connecting through that program with my spirit, like spirit animals, and like starting to learn about, a sense of, where am I supported through the animal kingdom. And a couple of them were the spider and the snake were
Hmm.
really big for me. And then I looked again, and there's the spider at the top, and there's the snake along the side, and there's the dolphin at the bottom. They're all there. And she says, "Do you see it?" And I was beside myself again, but now with like this inspiration. And I would not stop painting this thing. Like she had to kind of kick me out because I was like, no, I'm almost done. I'm almost done.
Right. There's got to be more.
Capturing, right? Capturing these things coming through. And it was just this incredible teaching for me on so many. I mean, I like unpack that, right, in terms of like, oh, learning about perfectionism and learning about, how things unfold as needed and trusting the process and all these things, right? And I
Yeah.
just remember that being like me being so in gratitude to Sandra for holding that space for me, basically having a temper tantrum about this thing, but also for encouraging me to continue to look deeper, right?
Hmm.
Mm.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think I thought of that story because just the art, the way that art and inspiration and finding that sense, can I come away from this and let just what wants to happen, let what wants to open up. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
amazing. It
That's
was amazing.
amazing. What a beautiful story.
And many more. I have one more thing about Sandra, only because I I keep opening the book to Grace,
Hmm. Hmm.
and this mare touched me in so many ways, literally, figuratively.
Yeah.
And I'm so
That
glad
was
she's in
Sandra's
here.
Sandra's mare. Yeah.
Sandra's mare, Grace.
Yeah.
I'm so glad she's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she is, was just amazing. Yeah,
Hmm.
So I'm glad you included her.
Mhm.
I think she really likes that.
Yeah. She was definitely from there from the beginning and will always be. Yeah.
And so coming back to the deck and all of these, I mean, there's so many, right? There's so many horses. How did you choose? How did you choose who you wanted to include?
Yeah. It was a very fluid process. We had, you know, way more than we could contain in in one herd.
Mhm.
There was so many beautiful stories and myths from our cultures, from countless cultures around the world that we wanted to portray, and we couldn't fit everybody in as well. Part of it was the timing. We had a year to basically create 80-90% of the deck, because we had not done as much in the beginning. I think we did maybe 10 essays and works of art over the beginning times, before we had a commitment from a publisher. So when when we got a contract, it was like, oh my gosh, we've got a
Yeah.
year. And so that was part of it, of course. And so in stepped in, of course, some of my beautiful works that I had previously created, thankfully, because they were there was no physical way that I could do,
No.
that many in one year. As it was, I had maybe 2 weeks per painting, which is something I've never even imagined, much less achieved. So it was really a challenge, amidst huge personal challenges with the health of our horses and caretaking my husband and all sorts of things. So um, he's doing fantastic. But
Oh.
it was a lot, and Sandra was working full time as well. So um, but it kept coming back to, the biggest myths that we really wanted to celebrate, of course, that are the ones that are most recognized, the unicorn, the Pegasus. But we wanted to also do some that were maybe less well known, the Kelpie
Mhm.
from Scotland, and Longma from China. And then amidst those, from the very beginning, we really wanted to depict, our everyday, beautiful beings that are sharing our planet, our own horses in some cases, and also horses that we'd known or met or knew of. Horses from Return to Freedom Wild Horse Sanctuary, which is a place
Mhm.
where we've both have um, have been in person meeting these horses and being with them at that beautiful sanctuary, and um, and their work there. And Sandra, in particular, was very connected with Sutter, who was had such a traumatic past and became the ambassador of wild horses to so many children and people who come to visit there. And so there were it was, a pantheon of horses who wanted to be included, and to narrow that down to 40 was really difficult. But um, whenever we set pen to paper or, pastel to paper, it became apparent who was stepping up. And
Mm.
we also did shamanic journeys together to um, compare notes, as it were, as to what our impressions were and who we were getting. And one of our most surprising and enlightening experiences is the painting I was going to show you, which I'll show you in a moment. But it was uh, is the being we call the Mythic Horse. And that was so amazing because we did a shamanic journey together, and our impressions of, we weren't even necessarily. I think we were planning on doing a card of him, but it was more like, what is the horse consciousness behind the deck? What is how can we anchor this? And it turned out to be a being, and that he referred to himself as Mythic Horse, and that he had this amazing presence of that is interactive. So he's not just a myth that is frozen in time that we put up on a pedestal and say this represents this. He is interactive with our consciousness. So anything that we think and feel about horses was literally reflected and drawn onto his body like moving pictures. We both saw these images of lines and forms and languages and movies and little girls' handprints and
Mm,
movies and books written about horses all through time. Like anything that the human consciousness has created about the horse was like playing across him like a moving picture. And so to encapsulate that, what I created was an image of this mythic horse being, and on his body are 5 of the most ancient languages that say the word horse,
mm,
in Greek, in Sanskrit, in Viking runes, that sort of thing, and in these gold letters. And it's the challenge of being an artist is that this amazing painting which I did that's like 30 by 38 inches is 5 by
it's little.
not even 3 by 5. But so those of you who do get the deck, you'll see these tiny little pictures on his body that are the lines. But the publisher was so wonderful, they actually pulled out some of those languages into like the calligraphy from China or whatever, and they
Mm,
put it in the border. So I think people will get the impression of what it is. So if I'll hold on one second and I'll
yes,
I'll turn around and
please.
I'll be off the microphone for a minute. So hold on.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I definitely have not seen this one.
Okay, I'm juggling painting here. So this is quite a large piece, and
Yeah.
it was just sometimes I have to go big just to convey the epic sense of
Yes,
what I'm
absolutely.
perceiving.
Wow. Oh
I'll
my
have to hold it
goodness.
back so you can see it.
That's incredible. Are you gonna make
Let me
prints of
see.
that one?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know
Wow.
if you can even see it. Hang on, let me back up here without detaching myself from the microphone.
Right?
I'm juggling microphone. Hey, hang on. Okay.
First ever art unveiling on the
Right, art
podcast, everyone.
unveiling with a microphone where I'm attached to the computer.
Love it.
Okay. I don't know if you can see
Wow,
it.
that is
Yeah.
something. It's incredible.
Yeah. And
Mm,
you're not actually seeing the whole thing, but I'll put it back over here so you can see it.
thank you, Kim. So I will
Yeah.
post a photo, everybody. I will post a
Great. I'll send
photo.
you one. Yeah.
So go to my podcast page, wholehorse.ca, under Kim's episode. I'll post a photo of this amazing creation and yeah, share it
And
with all of
the
you.
card is a slightly cropped version, partly so that the horse could be
Yes.
like bigger on the card, and you could see the impressions on his body. But yeah, he's pretty magical.
Oh, wow. Thank
And that
you.
that was just like a big yes from the universe for both of us, I think, to that was in sort of the beginning of taking on this beautiful project and this challenge of how to convey such a concept. And it was the beginning of the sense that this is bigger than us,
Yeah.
and that there is this consciousness is awaiting this interpretation.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's interesting. So to finish off, I thought, let's pull one more card and see if there's anyone else that needs to speak. And I kid you not, I pulled it the minute you said ambassador.
Yeah.
And so I'm holding up the ambassador card, which is the horse that you called Sutter.
And that's
Um,
Sandra Wallin's painting of him that was also
Amazing.
instructed by I believe by Diane
I was
Williams.
going to say, yes, that's familiar.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. And I felt when I read this card, just this sense of a horse that has been through so much struggle. at the hands of humans, and this sense of what your cards are, what this I don't even want to call them cards, but what this amazing creation is bringing forward is a way to continue to shift our awareness, our understanding of horses in what I consider very much the right direction.
Mm. Yeah, thank you
You
so
know.
much. Yeah,
Hmm.
we really were fascinated by, there aren't that many horse card decks. There are a few, but we really were committed uh to almost, breaking through any barriers of what might be considered, okay in the spiritual realm of I should say in the commercial realm of talking about spirituality, about horses and who they are. We didn't hold back anything,
No, you didn't.
and we really weren't going to sacrifice that honesty for its popularity. And we really also wanted to um, portray the truth about some of the darkness that
Yes.
humans have perpetuated and continue to, in hopes that speaking it and sharing the truth of that honors the horses that have gone through that and their spirits, and also informs our choices,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
also lets us explore, whatever uh healing we can offer to those beings, and restitution and healing
Yeah,
for all of us.
it's beautiful. The reparations
Hmm.
happening within. And I often think about legacy because I also work a lot with death and dying, and just in terms of animals, and like you sharing about capturing animals that have passed over, that is a legacy aspect. And I know that these cards are also that, right? Seeing grace and seeing these horses that I've known in the physical realm being
Hmm.
their
Yeah.
legacy and their message being brought forward here, because it's very important. It's a very important work. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So thrilled to have you as one of the first to really speak to it and receive it in that way, and such a pleasure to hear it, because we are just on the beginning
Hmm.
of understanding the impact that it might have. So thank you so much for seeing it. Namaste.
Namaste on that. And ooh, I love the gift. And we'll use it muchly all of my, I imagine, retreats and things to come where people get to dive into these are going to be very fun. So thank you. And I wanted Kim to offer you an opportunity to share how people can uh, find the cards. Where do they need to go to get themselves a copy?
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, I have signed copies I sell on my website, and but it is available worldwide through Simon and Schuster Distributing. Inner Traditions is the publisher. Actually, Bear and Company is their name on the deck. And so it's Amazon, it's
Yep.
available in booksellers worldwide, and people from other countries are, it might be a bit of a delay, like I think Australia, it takes till December for them to get their decks, kind of thing. But
Yep.
so excited that it's even available outside the country is just incredible. And yeah, and then for my work, my website is spiritofhorse.com, and in the next actually week or so, I'm going to be starting to trickle out some of the originals and prints for sale of the art and the deck. And excited to share that more with everyone who's just getting to know these beautiful beings.
Wonderful. Yay. Well, thank you for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure. It's just been such a joy. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks everybody for listening in today. And this will almost close our season 7. I think we've got one more and then we're done for this season. So thanks for being here. Look forward to that one. It's with Holly Barnett, and we will see you next time. Bye for now. Thanks for listening in today. I wanted to share about a brand new project that I hope you might be interested in. This is a new company, a new vision, and it's called Outside the Box Equine. And the very first offering of this new project is a brand new online course. And it is on something that many of you know is very near and dear to me, which is horsekeeping. And it is all about how to build a horse track system, and specifically how to do so in a wet climate like here on the West Coast. My vision, my goal is to change how we keep horses on the West Coast, here in Canada and in the US, and start to shift into a space where horses are kept in ways that is species specific and really working for them, working for all. So head over to the new website, check it out. There's a few blog posts there already. It's outsidetheboxequine.com, and you can sign up to receive notice when the online course is ready for you to sign up. Okay, would love to hear your thoughts and hope that you sign up for the newsletter so you can get all the deets when it's ready.